it was about being able to be with her in her environment. Instead of her being with me and my dreams in my environment, I got to be in her environment. I got to be in heaven, and it had to be heaven.
This is Touched by Heaven. Everyday encounters with God. Those moments when heaven and earth collide and we see God. We see His hand reaching out to us, attempting to get our attention, inviting us into a closer relationship. Here we share stories of encounter with angels, divine intervention, prophetic dreams, visions, near-death experiences, big and little God incidents. I'm your host, Trapper Jack. Welcome to episode 80 of Touched by Heaven. So glad you're here. Spend a little time with us today. And by the way, you look great today. I know I don't say that often enough, but there's something about you today. You look, I'm just saying, you know.
And I look better than ever, to tell you the truth.
There's nothing like a good FaceTime audio call to improve our looks. No question.
I love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
That's the good-looking Janice. We're all good-looking today. FaceTime audio calls, podcasts. Everybody looks great. It's fabulous. So welcome to it. And again, you look great. Whether this is the first time you joined us here at Touched by Heaven or the 80th time, welcome.
I came across yours yesterday, and I said, oh, this is beautiful.
This is just yesterday.
I came across yours, and I guess I started to listen to the lady that died so many times. and Mary, Mother Mary is consistently telling her, it's not your time, go back.
Yes, it was like, enough. Go back and live.
No,
go back. Get out of here.
And that one just opened my door because I was laughing so much at the scenario of us humans. Seriously, at some point we're dying to get into heaven. And now you've got heaven saying, nope, not yet. One of these days she's going to make it.
Yeah, exactly. When it's time. When will it be time? Well, we don't know, do we? That's up to God, right? Originally, I was thinking about tying this episode in with last week's episode, Fatima, the tip of the iceberg. There are some parallels here, especially with those two younger children at Fatima, Francisco, age 9, and his sister, Jacinta, age 7, taken so soon. Within just a couple of years, the Spanish flu, which was sweeping the world and would kill 50 million, took Francisco and Jacinta, and just like Mary had told them, soon you'll be in heaven. So it's a great success story, right? They're both canonized saints, May of 2017. This is a great success story. These children always close to God and wanting to stay close to God and be in heaven. But, you know, if you drop back to 1919, 1920, when within a year of each other they die, think about the family. Think about the devastation to the parents to lose two children.
People are always asking me, how many children do you have? And so when it's a hard subject to broach with people when they ask you that question, because, you know, I know what their answer is going to be. I'm so sorry. I hear a lot coming back, always going, no parent should bury their own children. And I have learned, I've learned and told somebody, I said, then you should go to the cemetery, because there's many children over the years that's been buried. So it's not for us to say. I look at it as it was their time. You know, that was their time. My time, I don't know. When God says it's my time, it's my time.
To help set this story up, understand that Janice has now been married 41 years.
That was a struggle in itself to be married 41 years. As young, we married really young, and we've stayed married all this time. So,
okay. How old were you?
I was 16. He was 18.
Whoa, baby. Whoa.
Mm-hmm. I was straight out of my junior year. He was in the Army.
Were you with child?
I was.
Yeah.
I was back then.
And still your parents said okay at age 16. Not exactly.
Even though I know my father was disappointed, it wasn't the worst thing in the world. And they liked my husband. You know, he was a stand-up guy. And so once we were married and after I had the baby, we did have a bit of a break after our first daughter died. I would say we were apart for about 18 months. You know, that was kind of rough for us back then. It's a part of your body. It's a part of your soul when you lose a child. But when you put all your faith And that it is also where I've told so many people is, don't lose faith, because that's your connection. That's what's going to hold you together. I know where they are at. I know that we simply turn into spirits and we go home.
Let's go back to how you've come to know that. When you lost your first child, how old? How old?
Oh, our first child, his name was Lindy Ann. She was 3.5. Lindy, before she died, and it was within a day or so, I remember her getting up from a nap, and she came in, and she wanted to tell me about her dream. And then here's a 3.5-year-old, and she said, "Mama, I dreamt of this big, giant butterfly. It was so big, and it had big wings, and it just picked me up, and just we got to go fly." And as a mother, I'm going, "Oh, that's sweet. That's a really good dream." Later, after she died, I said, "That was an angel." I think she was visited by an angel so that when her time came, she wouldn't be afraid.
Yeah, it's a dream of going to heaven in a sense, like you say,
Yeah.
just being picked up and off you go, and
And off you go. And that was just
yeah,
within a couple of days before she died.
wow.
This one day, there was a little kitten that was bribing her, trying to get my daughter to go outside. It was the same kitten that we had just gotten her over ringworms with. And this kitten was showing back up at the front door. We had a screen door on and it was locked, but my daughter was also an escape artist. And my husband was, I guess, running late coming home. We didn't have cell phones back then, so you didn't know where anybody was at any point of time once they left. And it just happened in the blink of an eye. I had gone in to one of the back bedrooms, and when the next thing I know, somebody's knocking on my door. She had gotten out of the locked screen door to chase the kitten, and she chased it in the road at the same time that a car had come down. Uh, and it was instant. I'm sorry.
No, it had to be devastating. It had to be, and everybody feels guilty, don't they?
Uh, totally. My guilt as a mother. My husband had gotten home right after that. He was home before or right about the time the ambulance got there. So it was within moments. And she died instantly. So that was, to me, that was a blessing. At the same time, I was pregnant with our second daughter. We had to bury our daughter while I was pregnant with the next one. That was not really an easy thing to go through either, I have to admit. I was angry back then. I was very angry. I remember being around a woman who had just found out she was pregnant also, and here I was pregnant. And we were talking about my losing Lindy and being pregnant with Melissa. And I remember, to this day, I still remember her saying, "Well, I can't believe in a God that would kill children." And I remember I was in this angry part of grieving at that point. I was angry at God too. But I also came back, and I know that was the end of my anger, because I came back going, "But he doesn't kill. God doesn't kill." My child went to heaven, and I couldn't live if I didn't know she was in heaven. So God has my child, but he didn't kill my child. We all have to die sometime. It's not for me to know the date. It's him. So that's when I realized he was my friend. He was not my enemy. He was my friend. She had more work to do because she didn't believe in God. She didn't believe there was a God. I don't know if he was working through me to help me through my anger, or he was working for me to her to let her know, whichever way it was, I walked away without being angry anymore. So that was a good thing. And I know there was a lot of people that had come up and made that comment quite a few times. I can't believe that there would be a God that would, you know, take our children from us. And I'm like, but we're all his children. What do you mean by take his children? We're all his children. You're going to go home. You know, hate to break the news to you. You're going to go home. It'd be nice for you to go ahead and know where you're going before you get there. But when Melissa was born, she just, she was everything I needed. So, anyways, we had 30 years with her. She gave us 3 grandchildren, which, is, of course, the 3 that we adore, everything about them. She was living with us 6 years ago. She was on her second marriage and having problems with the second marriage. She was also diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome. She was dealing with a lot of pain. When she would have flare ups, which was getting to be quite often, she just couldn't go anywhere. And that was building a lot of depression. He was on a lot of pain meds from an accident. So truthfully, 2 young adults on pain medications was just not a good thing. They split. She ended up staying with us. Her death ended up being from an accidental overdose. One night, she apparently had been given a new prescription, which was morphine based. And sometime during the day, she had also taken a hydrocodone, which did not mix. From what we understood, the toxicology showed that there was not enough to show that it was a suicide. It was the combination of a couple of the drugs that just stopped her heart. So
she was in your house at the time?
She was in my house. I found her.
Oh.
I found her with all 3 kids in the house. So I did what I could to try and make sure they didn't see her.
But you've got ambulances coming. Oh my Lord.
I had yeah. I had found her in the bed. I knew she was gone. You can tell when somebody has been gone for a while. So I just, everything in my head was running around, and I just grabbed the phone, and seriously, I called my sister, who lived about 2 miles from me, and just told her to come get the kids. Just hung up, called my husband, said, get home, and then called 911. I don't know if people would judge me for that, but I already knew she was gone. She was in bed. She was blue. I called 911, and then they tried to get me to do CPR. And I was seriously trying to tell them that she was too far gone, and they still had me do CPR. So, yeah, the ambulance got there about the same time my sister got there to take the kids out of the house. I always had kind of a sixth sense with her. I always would get a sick feeling in my stomach when something would be about to happen. I never knew what. I used to even pray saying, can you be a little more specific? Can you give me a little bit more information instead of just making me sick? And I know about 2 weeks before she passed, we had a conversation. And the conversation was on death. And she said, Mom, I don't want to die alone. I'm afraid. I don't want to be divorced. I don't want to die alone. I want to make sure I have somebody. And I was going, honey, you got to remember, you're never alone when you pass. You might take one last breath on earth. Your next is with Jesus. You're in Christ. You're not alone. You're never alone. He's going to be with there the moment you're passing. So I said, I know what you mean by not having somebody around you, but never think you're going to be alone. because you're not. There's no fear of going to heaven. And, I would have to make, within a week, I was sitting down by our fireplace. I know it was a spirit. I had a spirit go through me because I could feel it was like a wind. The fireplace was not open. There was no air in my house. I was just sitting there. And it was like a wind just passed through me. And when it passed through me, I could also smell, there was a horrible, acrid smell that came with it. And I knew exactly what it was. I knew it was death. And, it did scare me. And I actually even commented to my daughter. I said, I don't know what it was. I think I felt this. I don't know. But I want you to be careful, just be aware of your surroundings. I don't know if it's you. I didn't get the sick feeling. I just got this. Just, would you be careful with things? Of course. And what happened that actually came up to her death also was her husband's sister and her son were caught up in a house fire. And this was I believe on a Wednesday or a Thursday. They passed away in the fire. So at that time that happened, I actually was putting that premonition, I guess is what I would call it at this point. I was putting that with his sister and son. I thought that's what that meant. That was them. And then, of course, it was that Sunday that she passed.
Wow. This was Melissa's husband's sister, you said.
Her son.
And her son. My gosh. So Melissa's husband, in 1 week, lost 3 people?
Lost 3 people.
In just quick, tragic. Wow.
Yeah.
So Janice, my Lord, right in your own home, you've seen so much. You've seen a lot. Devastating.
Felt like it.
How soon, if I can ask it this way, how soon before you saw God's mercy in terms of trying to comfort you?
Oh, gosh. Within a few months, I started having dreams. And I didn't of my first daughter. I rarely had a dream of my first daughter. And yet with Melissa, I was having a lot of dreams. And these were reality in my dreams. We would be in our house. We would have normal conversations. I could touch her. I could feel her. Her expressions would be the same. Sometimes we were having a good time. Sometimes we were arguing. Those were my gifts, because I could wake up. I could wake up and still have her. So, to me, those were my gifts. I got to have these wonderful dreams. And I remember there was a few specific. There was one that was, I loved this one because that's when I did realize between dream state and reality, which had never happened before. And I remember in this one dream, we're talking and we're standing up in front of each other and we're having a conversation. She's kind of upset with me. I'm a mom, so sometimes things I didn't like, we would get into conversations or little arguments because I was still using my mother card all the time. And here we are talking amongst each other. And then she starts to turn around and leave. And I say, wait. And she turns around and I said, give me a hug. I need to hug you. And she hugs me. And I'm hugging her real tight. And I said, I don't know if this is a dream or if this is real. Because if this is real, this is good. And I love you. but I think it's a dream. And when I wake up, you're not going to be here. And that was one of the most profound dreams I had, because when I woke up, I knew I got that hug that I didn't get, because the last day of her life, we argued the night before. I was arguing with her over her condition, because she had apparently, I knew she had taken a pain pill of some kind, and uh, she was not as coherent as she should have been, and I was getting on to her about being that way with the children in the house and being their mother. So, you know, when she passed, it was one of those when they say never argue, and we did. I didn't hold that against us, and I didn't let that be a factor into my life that I did argue with her. We might have had an argument, but the next day we were always mom and daughter again. The hug, I think you always want that last hug. And so that was like a dream, another gift, I think, at one point. God gave me that. That dream was so real. And for me to realize in that dream that it might be a dream, I got to do what I wanted to do. I got to have my hug.
Most of us, as soon as we know it's a dream, it's over. It's one of those, I don't know if this is a dream or not. Usually, boom, you're out of it. And it didn't end right away for you, did it?
No, no, it didn't. And so that was wonderful. Like I said, I was given a lot of dreams with her that first year. And it helped me cope. It really did. It helped me get through a lot of bad times because I knew in my dreams I was with her. Then there was getting close to the 1 year mark, and that was what I had emailed you on. It's that 1 year mark dream. I can always go back to that. I can always, when I get sad or think about the loss at times, I can always go back to that dream and remember where I was and how I felt.
What happened?
When you're losing a child or a husband, the first year, you may know, anybody else listening or has heard about this knows, you have to get through your first year marks, birthdays, anniversaries. We had 3 grandkids, so I had to get past their birthdays without her, Christmas, her birthday, all this. And I remember praying, just saying, make this time easy for me. I want to get past this 1 year so that I can get back to living. I want to say it was right before her 1 year anniversary. But it was me and my 3 grandchildren. And we are it's like we're in the clouds because everything around us is like clouds. And there's other people milling around, but no one is really saying anything to us. And then there's my daughter, and she comes up, and when she was alive, she had this long, beautiful hair, just down to past the middle of her back, very thick, very beautiful. And in my dream, she's coming to me, and her hair is up to her chin, but they're in these huge, beautiful curls. And I guess we would call them bouncy curls in these days, just beautiful curls that just frame her face. She's in a white dress. The length of the gown is just below her knees. I don't remember anything other than just seeing how glowing she was, how beautiful she was, and the feeling of the purest peace that I've ever felt. There was nothing but purity all the way around us, is the best way I can describe it. There was I just felt so much joy, so much love, so much peace encompassing everything. The 3 kids were just all there together. And I remember like a table, and we just sit down at the table. And for the life of me, I cannot remember the conversation. And then, the biggest thing I remember thinking about that is it wasn't about the conversation. It was about where I was. It was about being able to be with her in her environment instead of her being with me and my dreams in my environment, being in our house, having a normal living day that we would be in. I got to be in her environment. I got to be in heaven. And it had to be heaven. There was just no other way to describe the purity of what I felt. And I remember trying to wake up. At one point, my body was trying to wake up. And then in my brain, come into a wake state, I knew where I was and I didn't want to wake up. And I'm literally laying in bed praying to Jesus, going, no, don't let me wake up. Let me stay. Don't let me wake up. I don't want to wake up. I want to stay here. And, of course we wake up. And I kept that feeling. I kept that inside of me because I said, there is no way I've never felt that way before. I have never felt that much love and that much joy in my life.
And you felt like a visitor.
I was a visitor. I knew I was a visitor.
Yeah.
I knew I was. I knew I was gifted.
I like how you stated how it didn't matter what was being said. It was, you just felt the love of your daughter and her kids, and everything felt like love, and it was just, you were surrounded by it, and it didn't matter what was being said.
It didn't. Yeah, the conversation that was something I woke up thinking, what were we discussing? What were we talking about? And that was the biggest thing that came to me, going, it didn't matter what I was talking about. I got to be there.
And what did it look like? Explain. You mentioned the table.
To me, the table was like a picnic table. It wasn't a very wide table because I could hold her hands. And the kids were sitting beside her. And she was just glowing. She was just glowing with happiness and glowing with joy. You just felt all of this at one time. You felt pure joy, pure love, and pure peace. To me, it was just like being in a cloud, just like you're sitting up in the clouds.
Your experience is showing you what?
My experience has shown me how good. Oh, I don't want to confuse people. I can't wait to go to heaven. It has opened up the door to heaven to where I know it's glorious. I know it's beautiful. To experience the joy that I know is there, I can't wait. Of course, I'm in no hurry, but, whenever you feel good, I'm good.
Thankfully, you got your faith to hang on to. And
oh, yeah.
Because without it, I don't know how people get through all of this without faith. I just don't know.
I don't either. I don't. I really don't know how anyone could get through it. Faith is everything. Faith is everything. I mean, I can't get through a day without praying. I can't. It's talking to Jesus. It's praying. I can't get through a day without it. He rules.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much for reaching out. You've been listening how long?
I came across yours yesterday and I said, oh, this is beautiful.
This is just yesterday. This was yesterday.
This was yesterday.
Wow.
This was just one day. I'm not weeks or months. I'm like, when I said days, I'm like, day.
Wow. Thank you, Janice. Hey, our first takeaway today is that if you have a story and you've waited longer than a day to tell me, there's your role model right there. There you go. Thank you, Janice. Here on Touched by Heaven, Everyday Encounters with God. But our big takeaway, what did God just say? In those crushing moments in life, thank God for faith. If we don't have that, what did she say? I loved it when she talked about how someone said, how can God take our children? We're all God's children. He made every single one of us. Nobody loves our children more than God does. And whatever that time span is that we have, it's blessed. It's all blessed. However long we have, or however long we have the people around us, it's all blessed. And if we can stay in that mode, we can get through these times. Isn't she just a tremendous role model? I mean, for how to go to faith and how to stay there. And it's still sad. You can still hear the sadness. It's like everything just happened just yesterday. It's still tender. It always will be a tender wound. But when we're able to take that step back in our faith and see the whole picture of what God is doing and how we all came from heaven, we're living here, and the hope is we get it right. We get to go back home. We get to go back home, back to heaven, back to God, Jesus. Everything is there waiting for us. Everybody's waiting for us in heaven. So thank you again, Janice. Oh, a shout out this week. Thank you, Pam. Pam Bongiorno. Don't you love that name? Pam Bongiorno, supporting us through Patreon. If you click through on episode 80 here at touchedbyheaven.net, you can join Pam and others who are helping us out financially, supporting us on a monthly basis. Thank you, Pam Bongiorno. Thank you so much. And I do need your story. Please get a hold of me at touchedbyheaven.net, touchedbyheaven.net. Leave me your story. I'll get back to you, and hopefully everything works out. You'll be in an upcoming episode, and you too will be inspiring others. Thank you. Here at Touched by Heaven, everyday encounters with God. I will see you next week. I'm Trapper Jack.